Afternoon, good morning, everybody. Committee of the Whole is back in order. We are in Chapter 2, and this morning I received a letter from DOE, which is on your desk. Senator San Augustine.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Bill number 22-34 COR as substituted by the Committee on Appropriation and Adjudication.
Just a point of order, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, I know that you shared with us that we were going to go chapter by chapter, item by item, so this would be a motion that will circumvent the entire process and just allow us to vote on the bill itself. Is that correct?
As
proposed, yes.
As proposed, yes.
I'm still waiting for a second. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
There's an objection. Anybody wish to speak on the motion, or if there's already an objection?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Could you just restate the motion?
The motion by Senator San Augustine was to adopt the entire budget as presented, and as it's been amended, that it's now biennial. I mean annual rather than biennial. And as Senator Uggan pointed out, that would mean that we would not be going through chapter by chapter, that the bill would be adopted as amended.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
I believe there are some areas, at least from my perspective, that do need a few amendments. If we adopt it right now without those amendments, then it could, well, first of all, it wouldn't allow me the chance to make those amendments. And so at this time, I still believe that we have some time to go through this budget, and there are more technical amendments that have an impact on our fiscal position, and so I would, with all due respect to the mover of the motion, have to object.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else wish to be heard?
Mr. Chair, I object as well. I think that we really need to take a look. There's nothing wrong with discussing this bill. This is going to impact our people. And instead of pushing something forward so quickly, I mean, there's nothing wrong to discuss this, that we discuss it further, and this bill needs more discussion.
Okay. That's why I'm asking for more comment. Let's put it to, there's been objection. All those in favor of adopting the bill as amended, please indicate by raising your hand. Yeah. Well. Oh, there was no second. Oh, okay. All right, the motion failed for not having a second and objections. Let's continue. We're on Department of Education. As I again mentioned, you have a letter from the Director of Education, Superintendent of Education on your desk. Does everybody have a copy of it? Looks like this. I saw them walk around and put it on everybody's desk, so. There's another, Senator Uggan doesn't have one either. Just as an overview for everyone, if you look at what OFB handed out to everybody last week, and you see how much was provided in 15, 16, 17, and how much we're now providing in 18. From the general, for total operations, it's gone from 228 to now this year 241, of which from the general fund, the amount has gone from 198 to 222. And I ask all of you to please note that this does not, again I repeat, this does not include payment for Tizan, Okadu, JFK, and for their offices, right? So the general fund is providing a considerable amount of, this is just for the operations without the, in this year's appropriation increases the general fund from 200, payments to GDOE from 208 to 222. Anyone have any questions or comments on section 1 of chapter 2, part 1, section 1? Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Wait,
Speaker.
I think
Oh, go ahead.
she was, and then you. Madam Vice Speaker.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to, I know I asked OFB, but I'm sorry. Can you just tell me one more time, what is the difference between the TEFF, the Territorial Education Facilities Fund, and the Facilities Fund balance? And does this wipe out the balance, section 1? I'm on lines 19 and 21 where they spell out the TEFF.
She's asking if it wipes out the balance. No, it doesn't. You will note from the sheet that was given to you that over the past several years, we've made fairly substantial appropriations from the Territorial Education Fund. What we tried to do this year is to reduce the dependence by GDOE on the Territorial Education Facilities Fund, TEFF, because of the fact that the administration has used the excuse the amount hasn't come in, so therefore we're not going to provide it to you. So we moved it to general fund and had other areas use a TEFF that are education related, such as buses. Then that way we know that we won't be getting the excuse that DOE is not getting funds because the collection hasn't been made.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But what is the difference between when they say Territorial Education Facilities Fund and Facilities Fund balance in lines 19 and 21? And these funds, these come from real property taxes?
Yes.
So, sorry.
The TEFF fund balance, oh, I thought that you were mentioning two different ones. There's only one, there's the TEFF fund balance.
Yeah, the Territorial Educational Facilities Fund is the revenue that's adopted in the budget.
Okay.
The fund balance is just basically the assets minus the liability. and assets are more than liabilities, so we appropriated from the available fund balance of that fund.
Are there additional funds available in this fund? I guess these are, you're calling these are prior year income, revenue, that, so we didn't recognize them in this year's revenue projections?
Yeah, so the fund balance is, I mean, it's in the FY16 audit, it would be the assets minus the liabilities, and then you'd have the fund balance over time, collected over time. So as in, let's say, for example, in FY16, the revenues were more than the expenditures, so you would add to the fund balance. And so the fund balance is appropriated to 100,000 to the First Generation Trust Fund Initiative. That's where the fund balance is being
Right.
appropriated to. But the fund balance, that's the difference between the fund balance and just the regular fund.
All right, and after the appropriations made in this chapter, is there any balance still available?
According to the FY16 audit, the fund balance for the Territorial Educational Facilities Fund is 5.7 million. Of that, there is about 4.5 million related to funds that are due to the Territorial Education Facilities Fund, and receivables, taxes receivable. So,
Does that mean they have 5.7, or they're still waiting for 4.5 of the 5.7?
based on what the FY16 audit says, it appears that there are funds that it's waiting to collect, if it's taxes or if it's due from other funds.
If those, Mr. Speaker, are available, a fund balance that's available, and they are revenue from prior years, can we allocate those to prior year obligations instead of I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but instead of allocating current appropriations to prior years for DOE? And if they have a fund balance, I mean, I guess I don't understand the reason we've always been given as to why they're short, why they're not able to receive their full allotment if the taxes are still coming in, the real property taxes. I'm not sure. Can you explain that?
I wish I understood too, which is the reason why I've asked them and tried to reduce the dependence so that DOE is not the one that's made to bear the burden of non-collection. I know that there was a move to even, or to some discussion about having rev and tax be the one that lived off the TEFF so that they would have reason to collect it. Because right now, since the collection is going to DOE, it doesn't seem like anybody, like they're really making the effort to collect like the 5.1 that's still outstanding. And as you saw from the letter from the superintendent today, 5.1 still has not been paid to them from last year's appropriation.
Yes, they've also have 732,000 in prior year accounts payable, and if they have a fund balance available, can we include that here? Can we appropriate more of it? I guess I'm not sure if I'm understanding the math correct, but if 5.7 million is comprised of 4.5 receivables, then there's still like a 1 million or a little bit less than a million still actually in there. Is that right?
It has to be collected, and I'd hate to use that as the funding source, because then if it's not collected, then they won't get. Then this.
No, I'm not proposing to use the 4.5 receivable. I'm proposing to use the fund balance, and I'm calculating it to be 1.2 million. Is that right? I mean, after whatever appropriations are made in this chapter, what would that balance be? I see the 100,000 here. At least 700,000. I guess, yeah, so my question is, Mr. Speaker, and maybe we can get an answer anytime, but if there's still $732,000 available in the Territorial Educational Facilities Fund balance, that's the first question. Is it available? Is it in there? And not part of the accounts receivable. And if we could then allocate that towards prior year obligations, since it is a prior year fund balance.
If and when it is collected, of course it will be. So if you want an amendment to pay the 732 with the prior year, we can work on an amendment.
Is that available in the fund balance? I guess I would need to know the fund balance, not including the receivables.
According to the audit, it says it's a fund balance. Why it's not transmitted to GDOE,
Yeah.
I don't know nor understand. I'm being real honest about that. I just, if the money is there, why hasn't DOE received it, and why are we still receiving this letter that 5.1 has not been paid?
Point of
But
order.
if you
Well, I'm
want,
going to wait to the next section, I guess, on that prior year obligation, but could I just get that page that shows the audit balance, then that would help. I guess I just still want to confirm whether, not including the accounts receivable, what is the balance in that fund? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
any other questions on GDOE, on the amount? Senator Uggan, then Senator Nicholas. Anybody else? Senator Nelson. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as a matter of fact, your office and you also provided us a copy of a communication from the Superintendent of Education, and it highlights $7.1 million of accounts payable for this fiscal year to date, and of which $732,000 is still related to prior year periods. And it also further highlights that $9.5 million this fiscal year has been expended to pay off prior periods. So, Mr. Speaker, in light of some of the questions that were posed by the previous speaker, and in light of some of the other issues with regards to the application of the Territorial Education Facilities Fund, what Department of Education has received to date, what their outstanding balances are, those are all questions that should be responded to accordingly by the Superintendent of Education or his financial operations team. And I'm not saying any of the board members, because I believe the board should remain policy related. So, Mr. Speaker, I know that there was a suggestion at the beginning of this session on the budget to call in a representative from the three respective entities, education, public safety, and healthcare, and have them directly respond to any inquiries by members of this body. And I want to once again reiterate that request, because I think it's not only very important that we as members understand the budgetary status of each of these respective entities, but most importantly, the people of Guam and the lives that they affect. Within DOE, you've got the 32,000 students, you've got the teachers, you've got the faculty, you've got the administrators, you've got the staff. They need to understand exactly what they have available, and also likewise with GMH, as well as our public safety agency. So, Mr. Speaker, I once again would like to call out for the invitation to be extended to these particular representatives so that they can respond to questions from members of this body. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I believe the superintendent is here. I didn't notice if the CFO was, but if we could.
Could I also ask for the person who controls transfer of the money in the TEFF? Who would that be? Is it the superintendent, or is
No,
it BBMR?
That's
DOA? I'm not sure.
Senator Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to reiterate the request from Senator Uggan, but I also want to have BBMR and DOA in here, because on Friday, when we were questioning them about this very open letter from the superintendent, they were going all over the place about how, oh, accounting doesn't require them to be reporting those kind of shortfalls. But this letter from the superintendent paints a very, very clear picture as to how, while their accounting gimmicks may justify the numbers they're putting forward on the budgets they're presenting, the agencies are not getting a fair shake when it comes to the realistic situation that they're in with what's being funded and underfunded. So I would really like to have BBMR, DOA, and DOE in here so we can get to the bottom of the question as to why they're saying that they have 0 encumbrances on their CRER report, but DOE is coming back and saying they're $7 million behind when it comes to being able to pay their payables. Somebody's not reporting something, and somebody needs to answer for that.
Thank you. We will endeavor to try to get those two back. I know we have DOE here. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My request was going to be that we bring in the DOE officials and perhaps someone that manages the accounting piece. So,
Okay.
so I reiterate what.
All right. Just the operations people, please. Just the superintendent and the CFO. I want to thank the superintendent and the CFO for being here. I believe Senator Frank Uggan, you were the one that initially requested for them. And then we will follow it with the Vice Speaker, Senator St. Nicholas, and then Senator Nelson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Superintendent, and Ms. Taitano. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and welcome to the legislature.
Can I just?
Sure.
Just as a quick, I think when we had a meeting last week, we all agreed that we would limit our questioning to 5 minutes. All right? On each go-round, yeah. All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and welcome again, Mr. Superintendent and Ms. Taitano. Just some general questions I want to begin with before we go around after the first round and then possibly have a second round of questioning. In regards to, well, first of all, I apologize. You just ventured into the opening of school year 2017 and 2018, so I just want to commend you and all of your team members for the efforts in terms of opening the schools. I do recall very distinctly that there was a communique between you and I, Mr. Superintendent, and I just want to get clarification for the record that it was directly in response to the process. because we were assured the day prior that, in fact, the occupancy permit was going to be completed, but that's neither here nor there. I thank you for reaching out to my office and having that communication with one of my team members. So thank you so very much. And I commend you and all of your team for the opening of the school year, and always being mindful that you're providing education for 32,000 students, inclusive of 3 of my wonderful grandchildren. So I certainly recognize that. I want to just venture into some general questions right now at this point in time, primarily because I'm sure some of the other senators would have questions with regard to specifics. The allocation for fiscal year 17 was in the neighborhood of $236.8 million. Is that correct? The allocation for the Department of Education for fiscal year 17 is approximately $236.8 million, all inclusive. That was provided by this legislative body. Of the 236, and based on the request that you submitted upon the beginning of the fiscal year, your plan that you submitted to the Department of Education of when you would like these funds to be remitted to DOE, where are we with being able to be on track? And I recognize that we still have a month and a half out before the end of the conclusion of the fiscal year.
Okay, so first of all, thank you again for the comments on the opening of the school year, and thank you for all of those of you senators who came out to support the opening. And obviously still a lot of work to be done to get through the first couple of weeks of school. On the questions you asked, we did come prepared with information. I hope you'll allow me to turn to Ms. Taitano, our Deputy for Finance Administrative Services, to walk us through those details, and then we can further that discussion.
Absolutely, thank you. Ms. Taitano?
So for fiscal year 2017, BBMR has released.
Can we go, Ms. Taitano, and I was specific with my question because it's in accordance with the plan that you submit to DOA by virtue of the budget requirement. So, I mean, we can talk numbers as of today, but if it wasn't part of your plan that you submitted at the beginning of the fiscal year that we need so much in October of fiscal year 17, so much in November, so much in December, and then I think it would be unfair for us to discuss it in generalities unless you just took the $236.8 million and you just divided it in 12. If that was the case, then yes, we can speak hard numbers.
Right, so at the beginning of the fiscal year, we do submit a allotment schedule to BBMR. There was a little bit of confusion this year because I think the law said that DOA was going to be in charge of the allotments, but in any case, we provided that allotment schedule to both DOA and BBMR. And as of today, based on that schedule, the difference between what's been released by BBMR and the cash that we've received from DOA is about $17 million.
So based on the plan that you submitted at the beginning of the fiscal year for cash allotments, right now you're $17 million, approximately $17 million shy of that.
Right, so what generally happens is that BBMR releases allotments at the beginning of the month for the full month, and we get payments from DOA weekly. So generally at the beginning of the month, there's a larger difference, and then as we move through the month, the difference gets smaller.
Okay.
So, yeah.
No, I understand. Thank you very much, Ms. Taitano. Mr. Speaker, I anticipate the arrival of the other two individuals, so I'll withhold any further questions up to that. Thank you very much.
Madam Vice Speaker, did you have any questions?
No, I would like to wait for those other two.
Oh, wonderful. Then I guess we will be in recess until I can get those Senators, I know there was at least 4 of you that requested a representative from DOE and BBMR. And we've reached out from every channel we could and have received back the same note. DOA and BBMR will not be available until after 1 o'clock. So it's 11:30. Let's go have lunch and be back at 1.